Hey friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather. I have been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009 with my show, which makes it the original Tudor History Podcast. This channel is where I put all of my episodes of all of my podcasts, as well as tons of extra content like this video right here. Today, we are going to do another conspiracy theory deep dive. I love these conspiracy theories. I've enjoyed digging into some of these. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist myself. I don't really buy them. I've said before, I think it takes far too much, competency than most people have to keep a secret that long. And there's like too many people involved. And I just don't think that most conspiracy theories hold much water, but they're fun to think about and they're fun thought experiments. So I do have fun with them. And today we are going to talk about the conspiracy theory that Anne Boleyn had 6 fingers. Did Anne Boleyn have 6 fingers? Where does this theory come from? Who believes it? How has it held up this long? And really, it kind of blows my mind. When I first started reading about the Tudors in the 90s, when I was in college, I still read things about Anne having 6 fingers. Like it was written about as if it was real, right? Like it was just part of history. It was that Anne had 6 fingers. And this wasn't that long ago. It kind of blows me away that this has held up this long. So we're going to talk about it today. Before we do, though, just your reminder that if you want to see more Tudor history in your YouTube feed, who doesn't, go ahead and hit subscribe so you never miss a video that I put out. All right, so let's get into it. Anne Boleyn, one of the most famous queens in history, but was she also a witch who had 6 fingers, moles, and an unnatural deformity? History's word, not mine. Yeah, no. The idea that Anne had an extra finger has been circulating for centuries. It's often used as supposed proof that she was marked by witchcraft, cursed from birth, or simply too strange to be the queen. But where does this myth actually come from? Today, we're going to talk about its origins, explore how it was used against Anne, and look at what the real evidence says. Because, spoiler alert, Anne didn't actually have 6 fingers. So let's start with where this myth comes from. The earliest mention of Anne's supposed 6th finger comes from Nicholas Sander. He was a Catholic exile. He was writing in 1585 when Elizabeth was queen, nearly 50 years after Anne's execution. By the time he wrote his book, Anne had been dead for decades, and her daughter, Elizabeth, was on the throne. Sander hated Elizabeth and wanted to destroy her legitimacy. What better way than to attack her mother's reputation? Sander described Anne as having a projecting tooth, a large goiter swelling on her neck, and an extra finger, and an overall hideous appearance. His goal, of course, was to portray Anne as an unnatural, deformed woman who should never have been queen. The implication was clear. Anne was so monstrous that Henry VIII must have been bewitched into marrying her. There's just one small problem. Nobody who actually knew Anne ever described her this way. Sander wasn't born until the year after Anne died, so he never saw her, never met her, had no firsthand knowledge of what she looked like. His account is pure Catholic propaganda written to make Elizabeth seem like the daughter of a cursed woman. Why did people believe it? Even though Sander's account was clearly biased, the 6-finger story spread, and there are a few reasons why. First, the witchcraft connection. In Tudor England, people who had some kind of physical differences were seen often as a sign of witchcraft. The idea of Anne having an extra finger or a strange mark helped to reinforce the claim that she bewitched Henry VIII. And even though Anne wasn't officially charged with witchcraft, this rumor helped to justify her downfall. Also, it fit the narrative. After Anne's execution, Henry worked hard to erase her from history. She was labeled a seductress, a traitor, someone who had bewitched the king. The 6-finger story made her seem even more unnatural and therefore undeserving of being queen. Third, as we all know from social media, gossip, anything sensational, spreads faster than facts. Sander's account was repeated over and over in later writings, which made it seem true. Victorian historians especially loved it, and a lot of what we get about the Tudors now in the time period that we're living in comes from the Victorians. The Victorians were fascinated with the story of Anne and often romanticized her downfall, making her seem like she was perhaps doomed or cursed from the start. The more times the story was repeated, the more people assumed that it must be true, even though there's zero evidence. So, if Anne didn't have six fingers, what did she actually look like? Unfortunately, most portraits of Anne were destroyed after her fall, so we don't really have many surviving images from her lifetime. But there is a piece of evidence, the Moost Happi medal. The medal was created during Anne's reign. It's the only undisputed image of her made while she was alive. It shows Anne with a long, elegant neck, delicate features, and no sign of anything on her neck or anything like that. The medal was officially commissioned, meaning it had royal approval. It was meant to show her strength and her legitimacy as queen. Then there's also eyewitness accounts. Ambassador Eustace Chapuis, who was not her friend, in fact, might have been one of her biggest enemies, admitted that she was not conventionally beautiful, but she had an expressive face and black, flashing eyes. A Venetian diplomat described her as having medium height, dark hair, and a striking presence. No one in her lifetime mentioned a sixth finger, a goiter, or anything that was at all out of the ordinary. If Anne had had an extra sixth finger, it would have been impossible to hide in the court. And people would have talked about it. Ambassadors would have talked about it. Like, do we honestly think that the king is going to marry this person who has six fingers but nobody's going to write about that? And all of the letters we have of Chapuis that he wouldn't have written about it, no first-hand accounts show any sign of it at all. Did the Tudor people see Anne Boleyn as a witch? Anne was never officially accused of witchcraft, but there was this idea that she bewitched Henry, and that was definitely floating around at the time. And given that, if there would have been some physical evidence, we would also make the assumption, it would make sense that people would talk about that as well. If they're just talking about her bewitching him, if there's actually physical evidence to back that up, they would have brought it up, I would think. Henry was obsessed with Anne for nearly a decade before he married her, and many believed that his devotion was unnatural. Some of Anne's enemies claimed she had cast a spell on him, which explained why he was willing to break from the Catholic Church just to marry her. And the rumor became even more useful once Henry wanted to get rid of Anne. If she had seduced him through unnatural means, he wasn't responsible for his mistakes. The witchcraft idea was also conveniently timed. Henry never accused Anne of witchcraft while they were together, but after the marriage soured, he started complaining that he had been seduced into the marriage. When Anne couldn't give him a son, some people whispered that she was cursed or possibly even a changeling. And the six finger rumor fit perfectly into this idea, making her seem unnatural and other. Her trial didn't include witchcraft, but the official charges against Anne were adultery, incest, and conspiring to kill the king. The idea that she was a dangerous, unnatural woman helped to justify why she had to be removed. The Tudor court didn't need to burn her at the stake for witchcraft. They just needed for people to believe that she was a danger to England. So Anne's downfall was totally political, but the myth of her being cursed or physically marked made it easier to destroy her reputation. So why do people still believe that this exists? Why are there still people out there floating around this idea that Anne actually did have six fingers? First, like I said, from social media we know this, scandal sticks better than facts. Facts are boring. A queen with six fingers and witch-like marks, that is so much more of a juicy story than Anne Boleyn was a normal-looking woman caught in Tudor politics. Also, once a sensational rumor takes off, it's hard to erase it. The Victorians made it popular again. Like I said, in the 19th century, the Victorians became obsessed with Tudor history, especially Anne's story. And many Victorian historians repeated Nicholas Sanders' lies without questioning them. They loved the idea of Anne being marked from birth as a doomed queen. Agnes Strickland herself, who was a Victorian historian who helped to popularize Anne Boleyn for the Victorians, talked about Anne wearing long sleeves, these long hanging sleeves to hide her sixth finger. And some people say she actually designed the sleeves herself so that it would cover the sixth finger. Even today, pop culture keeps it alive. TV shows and movies love to include the idea of Anne's six fingers because it makes her seem a little bit more mysterious. Some versions of the Tudors actually reference her having six fingers, and novels often describe Anne as having unnatural beauty. Even though historians have debunked it, pop culture refuses to let it die. So let's wrap this up. So, did Anne have six fingers on one hand? It's funny. It's a riddle. It's the kind of thing my daughter would jump at because, like, yeah, she had six fingers, not all on one hand. Anyway, Anne Boleyn, no, she did not have six fingers on one hand. Was she accused of witchcraft and unnatural traits? Yes, but only after her death. Why? Because it made her downfall seem that much more inevitable, like she had been doomed from the start. Anne Boleyn was a strong, intelligent woman in an era when that made people uncomfortable. The six finger, on one hand, myth wasn't about appearance, it was about making her seem like someone who never should have been queen in the first place. But the real reason she was executed? Politics, not witchcraft, not any kind of differences with her body, just plain old Tudor backstabbing. So there we go. Anne Boleyn conspiracy theory debunked. Let me know in the comments, what's the wildest Tudor myth or conspiracy theory that you have heard? I love digging into some of these and like just the history of where they come from. So much fun. Are you into conspiracy theories? What's your favorite conspiracy theory? It doesn't even have to be Tudor related. I would love to know. I really love these things. So anyway, if you've made it this far in the video and enjoyed it, I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. It helps to feed the algorithm and get our content to even more people. And I hope I earned your subscription to my channel where I put out content videos like this on the regular. If you want to keep binging Tudor content, Anne Boleyn content, here's a video of James Peacock, who started the Anne Boleyn Society, talking about Anne. And here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, you are deeply loved. I'm so glad I shared the planet with you. I will be back soon. Don't forget to drink your water. All right. Bye-bye, friend.